Hello, good morning, good afternoon. This is Michal and Czichik from Runecast. Thanks for coming to our webinar. We have already a few people waiting, and we are about to start in 3 minutes. So let's get the other people to join, and let's wait. We will start soon. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, welcome to our webinar. Again, thanks for coming. My name is Michal Czichik, product manager with the Runecast, and I'm here together with Warren Leck, our senior product development. Hello, Warren.
Hi, Mikhail. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for joining me today. And actually, Warren is our technical expert on a product, and actually, he was a user and expert on the virtualization infrastructure in his past jobs. So he will take us today to the Spectre and Meltdown vulnerabilities topic and how also Runecast helps you to fix those environments, but not only that. But prior to that, I would like to a little bit introduce Runecast as a company and also Runecast Analyzer to many of you because Runecast is still quite young company on the market, and I would like to make sure that you guys know what we do. Also, before I start, the company can encourage all of you to use the questions and answer panel of the GoToWebinar. This is interactive session, so feel free to ask questions. We will do our best to answer the questions during the session. This session is also recorded, and every one of you will receive the follow-up email with this recording and potentially other materials that comes together with this webinar. All right, let's get started about Runecast. As I said, the company was founded in 2015. At the moment, we are actually spread it kind of around the entire globe. We have the development center in Czech Republic. We have also some developers in UK, Australia, and US. Our founders are coming from IBM. They were managing data centers for quite a long time. Stan Markov, our CEO, is VCDX, but also we have other highly certified VMware people in our team with quite a long experience. And our mission is to help admins to build and operate their data centers. This was something that our founders wanted to do and help people also in their past job. And because of that experience, they found this idea about Runecast Analyzer and automate VMware, but also not only, in this case, VMware expertise knowledge. What it means, automate VMware's expertise knowledge. Basically, what those VMware experts and engineers found during all of these years of the practice, that 80% or even more of vSphere outages are caused by known and documented issues. That simply means that any purpose of that issue, connectivity issue, firmware or driver compatibility issue has been already documented prior you noticed an outage, slowdown, or any kind of other strange behavior of your virtualized infrastructure. And that led to the idea that this kind of proactive identification of those issues can be done using some particular software, and then simply Runecast Analyzer has been born. What it does, it simply takes the VMware knowledge base articles, best practices, and security hardening, and it's able to automate those manually written articles, knowledge books, and transfer them into automated scans of your vSphere, vSAN, also in the near future ESXi environments. So it basically takes a lot of the time off your plate, and you are noticed prior the incident actually appears on your infrastructure. How it works, and basically what exactly Runecast Analyzer does. It detects primarily the issues. As I mentioned, it's able to identify all known KB issues, security weaknesses, or potential misconfigurations of your vSphere and vSAN environments. It also takes syslogs produced from your ESXi hosts, vCenters, or virtual machines, and in real time, it's able to identify the content and compare the symptoms in the logs to any existing knowledge, existing potential problem, and evaluate that in real time and point you exactly to the problem coming from the syslogs. That means it's not a replacement of the tools like Login or Splunk, but it tells you exactly what we detected as a vulnerability or potential issue in the log. So you do not need to specify any setups, configurations, or patterns. You will simply provide it by the very exact and specific result. It also tells you the severity of the issues, because normally all of those best practices, knowledge-based articles, and also security hardening guides, they are pure text, and there is no severity or priority or the impact and the risk of each of those. And because we process them here with also at some aspect manual level, and we have the V experts on the team and VMware engineers, they are able to assign the severity and also the risk, assign the risk to the knowledge-based articles. So everything is ranked by potential, let's say, a cause of damage, and you are able to prioritize properly, because still we're talking here about many issues that can be detected, because there is like thousands and thousands of knowledge-based articles, best practices, cases, books, and also like community updates. So we want you to focus on the most important ones first, and then obviously if time you can proceed with the medium priority and low priority. So that's another advantage for the VMware admins to do focus on the most important one first. And we also take how to fix it, because obviously many of those knowledge-based articles and best practices have a clear path to the solution. We contain that information out of the box in the product, so you don't need to go and Google for how to fix this issue. Everything is at one place. Together with that, you can be also notified via standard alerting that you're used to from monitoring software tools about the issue being detected. For the rest, we also cover security hardenings and disaster profiles. Many of us probably know that this is quite time-consuming thing, especially because you need to make it time consistent. So you still need to validate in a time that you are compatible, compliant with those security profiles. And Runecast Analyzer does very the same thing as with the knowledge base and best practices. We have those profiles automated. We can scan your vCenters and tell you what tests passed and failed. Now I would like to show you a little bit, behind the scene and how it works from the technical side, so you can understand the entire process here. So on the left-hand side, we are collecting and crawling every day the new information from VMware knowledge base, social media, blogs, forums, simply what are the new issues detected, what are the new problems, what are the new updates regarding the existing issues, for example, how you can detect it, what it can impact, what patches are working, not working, if there is a new patch released. That goes to the Runecast central repository, which is actually our server. And then there is on the right-hand side the Runecast Analyzer appliance, which is the OVA virtual appliance. You need to spin it through the VMware player on one of your ESXi hosts. And this Runecast Analyzer simply scan your vCenter, so you connect the vCenter and use the web interface to scan the configuration. What's important to say, Runecast Analyzer can work fully in offline mode, so it doesn't need an access to our central repository portal, because all of the knowledge updates or application updates can be transferred as a file to this isolated environment, and it can still let your Runecast Analyzer appliance to be updated. If it's online, we automatically check immediately if there is a new knowledge update available. Also, we do not store any sensitive data in the appliance. We do not store whole configurations or also neither whole logs in the log files and syslogs. We only store the information that are important for us to evaluate the existing issue from knowledge-based best practice or security hardening. So that's a very brief overview, and I think the very short demo is better than thousands of the words. So let me actually switch my screen to this demo and give you a quick tour. And for this purpose, I'm actually going to use our live demo. So we have a demo.runecast.biz. Any of you can try it. Obviously, you can also download the product, but this is the fastest way how to become, familiar with the interface and the value of the product. So at the moment, I'm on the main dashboard. And at this particular demo, I connected a couple of vCenters. So basically, we see all the vCenters connected here. And I scan them. And by the way, the scan typically takes 1, 2, 3 minutes in average. And I can see the summary of the risks. So I can now decide how I would like to mitigate them and where I would like to focus first. I can take it from the left-hand side and go by the severity. So I can expand the critical issues, major issues, or medium issues, or I can have a look at it from a different perspective, from this kind of VMware stack view, because we are also able to categorize the issues according to the standard VMware stack layer. That means storage, network, compute, virtual machines, or vSphere management. And again, according to that, we are able to categorize and actually rank the severity of detected issues. So for example, I will actually use this. I would like to use storage, and I click on critical severity, and it takes me to the issue list of what's been detected. So there are 3 critical cases. This one is about the storage. So if I expand it, it shows me basically the definition of the symptoms. It calls me also resolution details, so what I need to do to fix it. And under the findings tab, it shows me why this issue has been evaluated. So for example, for this vSense and -1, it is showing me this combination of the finding values. So it shows me the vSense cluster status, build number, version, etc., etc. And these are all the symptoms that are normally described in the KB article, and you would normally have to manually go through all of those instances and check what's, for example, the host version, build version, and evaluate it manually, which, as you agree, it's simply human not possible. It's completely time killer. And here you have it done in 2 minutes. Obviously, you can click on the issue list and see all of the issues structured, and you can filter it by the source. You can filter it by the severity or by the type of the object or what it affects again. So we can see also medium and other priority issues. The same works for the best practices. Again, something that's normally very time consuming, but here we scan your environment and we can tell you what best practices were evaluated as a failed and which one are marked as a passed. And if you expand the particular best practice, it shows you amount of the objects. So this is the best quick overview to get familiar with the interface. And I don't want to steal the thunder from Warren, because now it's time to switch to Spectre and Meltdown, and actually how Runecast Analyzer can help you to guarantee that your environment is properly fixed, because we recently seen that there is another wave of patches by VMware for Spectre and Meltdown. So Warren, time's yours now. And please tell us more about how to fix the Spectre and Meltdown, and maybe let's get started with what it actually means, Spectre and Meltdown, how it impacts the virtualized environment.
Okay, well, thanks very much for that introduction there, Mikhail. Yeah, so if we could just be presenter.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So let's just nip across to my slide deck here. Okay, yeah, so we've got a really short time slot here, but I just want to give an overview, really to demystify what Spectre and Meltdown is, and what the impact could be on you if you're breached by it, why it's particularly important for vSphere virtual data centers to be protected, and to look at why the data center needs to be protected at all levels as a whole system. After we've done that, we can look at the best practice process for detecting and resolving vulnerabilities throughout the vSphere stack. Okay, so on January the 3rd of this year, really the spectre of Spectre was raised within the community when the Spectre Meltdown security threat became public. So this was reported predominantly by Google Project Zero. To give some description, really, the name Spectre is based on its root cause, so it's speculative execution, which operates within the physical CPU of a machine, and also because it's not easy to fix and apparently will haunt us for some time. Meltdown gets its name because it acts to melt the security barriers within your processor. One thing to note is that VMware have stated currently that there are no known issues affecting VMware hypervisors for Meltdown, but the vulnerabilities are addressed by VMware in multiple KB articles and in their issue patches. So really for convenience, I'll just refer to these two exploits generically as Spectre. But what's affected by Spectre? Well, all modern processors are potentially vulnerable. Spectre's been verified on Intel, AMD, and ARM processors. So almost every system is affected, from desktops, laptops, smartphones, and very importantly for us, data center servers such as ESXi hosts. Well, we're all interested to know, why is Spectre a threat? Well, it is a real threat because these hardware vulnerabilities allow processors to steal data, which is currently being processed within the computer. So processors are typically, not permitted to read data from other processes, but exploiting Spectre malicious program could read sensitive data stored in the memory of other running processes. So you can use your imagination, but this could be passwords or other critical secret information. So this can operate, within the OS where malicious code is operating. So on traditional platforms like physical servers or other devices, in a virtual environment is particularly important because VMs run as processors or worlds within the hypervisor. So data can actually be read across VM instances. So this could be especially dangerous in multi-tenant environments, for example, where VMs are owned by different departments or even different companies on the same host. So you can imagine that's a massive breach threat there. So it's a major security risk for all of us as stakeholders in virtual environments. In order to appreciate really how we need to protect against this within vSphere, the data center really needs to be understood and treated as a holistic system, because the components are interrelated and dependent on each other throughout the various layers of the stack. So here we can see, the management, VM, and host layers. And it follows from this that we need to, detect vulnerabilities and remediate at all levels throughout the stack, to achieve a consistent and protected data center. So here, the composition of the vSphere components and layers are shown schematically, kind of abstracted so that the components relative to the Spectre vulnerability are shown. So going through the layers of the data center from the bottom up, we've got the physical hosts, which really constitute the foundations of the data center. Now they contain the physical CPUs and its critical microcode, which is really the gateway through which, or the vector through which Spectre attacks. The physical CPUs are presented via the hypervisor, ESXi software, and consumable by the VM within the stack. So, importantly, the hypervisor presents the CPU capabilities through the hypervisor. So if we move up to the VM level, as said, VMs run as processes. This is in the virtual machine monitor. They connect to the hypervisor through a virtual hardware layer. So they have virtual CPUs there. So it's important that we have virtual hardware here that can support the underlying CPU capabilities, and we're protected at this layer. Within the VM itself, we have an operating system and its applications. So, the application is where the attack originates. In the first host here, we can see Spectre sort of exploiting within a VM, which could happen in a physical system. But in the second case, we can see, kind of even more dangerous example, where we're seeing an exploit across VMs. So working up to, the management layer, in vSphere environments, vCenter is the overall manager for the inventory of hosts, clusters, VMs. Therefore, it's important that it's operating in concert with the hosts and VMs it's managing. But additionally, we should add that vCenter needs protecting itself. So the operating system, whether it's Photon OS or Windows, needs to be patched against Spectre. And just to add, the latest patch of vCenter also includes some assistance for remediating EVC clusters. So it's really important, that layer is also remediated. But the real take home from this is that in order to protect against a threat, it's really important that remediation is carried out at all interdependent and interconnected levels of the data center. So the physical CPU, hypervisor, virtual hardware, and OS layers all need to be protected. Okay, so let's look at the technique or the method by which we should remediate the stack. So standardly, with all these sorts of vulnerabilities, you need to detect where you're vulnerable across the stack critically. When you have this information, you can then remediate the components, and then through the remediation, you verify that. So multiple conditions, can exist, which mean you're exposed to Spectre. So these can be, your vCenter build, the host build, VMware hardware versions, or CPU capabilities presented within the VM. So you could, check for these conditions manually from the knowledge base articles and manually compare, to your complex configuration. Or, what we'd recommend you do is you can use the Runecast Analyzer to automatically do these checks for you by exploiting the VMware knowledge base. So what I'm going to do now is just nip over to our live demo environment and show you, this is Runecast Analyzer. So this is the window on your data center. So we're looking at a particular vCenter instance here. So this is showing you where you're exposed to vulnerabilities in terms of known issues reported in the knowledge base, best practice, and security compliant non-compliances. So if we're looking for Spectre vulnerability in this data center, which is actually exposed, then let's have a look at our critical issues. So if we work down the list here, here's a particular knowledge base example, which refers to, a Spectre vulnerability. So if we drill into that, we can see, and this is available completely offline, the full content of the knowledge base article. But very importantly and critically, we can also see in our detection process that it's found the specific objects within our inventory which are actively exposed at this moment to Spectre. So if I look at my vCenter, for example, it'll tell me all of the objects within there, and also, like the particular VMs which are running now and actively could be exploited by Spectre. So additionally to being able to do this in Runecast in the analyzer, you can also use the web client. So if I look at a particular VM, this demo VM here, reported standardly out of the box, VMware Tools is not installed is the only issue reported. If we look in here, overlay it with the Runecast data containing, our non-compliance information and also our knowledge base vulnerabilities, then we can click into here and see, specifically that we have this VM is affected by the Spectre issue. We can actually link across, so we show it throughout the stack. It's related to this vCenter, that's related to this host. We go into that host, same story here, no issues being reported. If we overlay the Runecast issues, we can see we're actually exposed to many vulnerabilities, including Spectre. And you can see, where within the stack the host is related to the other components. Okay, so I'll nip back to the slide deck. Okay, so importantly, the analyzer will identify for you where you're exposed, but it will also allow you during the remediation process to confirm and verify when you're working through it that you've actually cleared those problems, because those issues will disappear and the components will disappear from those issues. And it'll also tell you, which patches are required and point you where to get them from within the knowledge base article. Okay, so that's how we detect and really verify that we've resolved our vulnerability to Spectre. But the process by which we perform, our remediation is that which is commonly used, when patching in the vSphere data center. So you work methodically through the various layers. The best practice approach would normally be to carry out a remediation against the test environment first, just to prove the concept for the resolution. But what you standardly do is you'll remediate vCenter first. So this is done usually from the VAMI interface or within the appliance itself, either online or offline. You'll then work through your hosts, remediating using your normal patching policy or methodology in your organization. So it could be auto deploy, ISO image on USB or VUM, for example. And importantly, just to mention the latest patches on ESXi from VMware actually include the microcode updates for the physical CPU, so there's no need to apply this separately. Once you've remediated your hosts and verified that, you can then work through the VMs and make sure they're upgraded to the virtual hardware versions, which are contiguous with the ESXi host and the physical CPU capabilities which are presented on that. VMware say at least version 9 and recommended v11 plus. So once you've done that and cleared that down, or actually you could do this in parallel if you wanted to, you will also need to upgrade the operating system within the VMs themselves. So make sure that your Windows or Linux VMs are patched with the latest updates in there to combat Spectre. But once you've carried out the process, you'll be protected at all virtualization layers, and this can be confirmed simply with a clean scan across your environment, using the Runecast Analyzer. Just a couple of things to be aware of. Once you've actually successfully completed the remediation, there have been performance compromises reported in the community of sort of 10 to 15% of some applications. But however, VMware is saying this can be mitigated by upgrading the virtual hardware v9 minimum, preferably to 11 plus. So believe that should at least mitigate the performance problem. And if you follow the process that we've just covered, then you would have done that in any case. So also just here I've put some resources that could be helpful for you. So these are the key knowledge-based resources which are available from VMware. And also there's some helpful blog articles which are available in the community which I've added there, and they'll also guide you through a similar process. Okay, so I think that really that covers the way in which we look at addressing Spectre and Meltdown issues and our kind of recommended way in which you'd remediate that in combination with the automation of Runecast Analyzer.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you. It was great. And I would just remind our listeners that there were multiple patches released by not only VMware but also the other companies, but VMware namely for this virtualized infrastructure. So it's very important to stay up to date, because what was valid yesterday is no longer true. And as I said earlier, we just rolled out another definition update just for Spectre and Meltdown. So it's important to probably schedule those scans of your infrastructure to ensure that you will stay well protected. But thank you again, Warren. That was a great overview. I hope it's helpful for our listeners.
I hope so too.
Because we actually running to the end of the session, I would like just to wrap up with a couple of notes here. So actually, let's turn to back to my screen for a moment. Okay, so just for some of you who may thinking of trying Runecast and how to also position it to budget holders and your managers, I can just summarize that the Runecast Analyzer certainly saves a lot of time and mainly mitigates the risks of outage, security hole, or a performance bottleneck. So you certainly can save a lot of time and also the money, after all, preventing the outages rather than solve them afterwards. Besides that, obviously, if you would like to be compliant with any security profiles, namely disaster and VMware hardening, again, it's a huge time saver for you to use Runecast Analyzer, also because it covers this compliance in a time by the scheduled scans. Now, I think some of you may be interested what we offer in terms of free trial. So you can go to our website, runecast.biz, and download a free 14 days appliance of our Runecast Analyzer. It has limited functionality in terms of the details of the issue, so you'll be able to see 30% of the issues, but it will detect the whole number. So you will see also what's potentially as an issue, that as a number detected in overall number and the risk that we are able to discover on your infrastructure. I see actually a few questions here, so let's go through them very quickly. How is your first question is how is your product licensed? So our product is licensed based on the ESXi host CPU. So each CPU counts as a licensing element. And second question, what versions of vSphere you cover? So we cover versions 5.5 up to the most recent ones. And the last one I see here is how are the updates distributed? So actually, I mentioned it a little bit on the architecture slides, but very briefly, we split it the definition updates, which are small, and we can also release them on a daily basis. And those are available, first of all, on custom portal for the offline environments, or they're automatically applied if you connect it to our update server. And then we also release the Runecast Analyzer appliance updates, which are the bigger one. It's typically 1.7 up to 2 gigs file. It also can be scheduled, but it requires update of the whole instance of Runecast Analyzer. Okay, so I hope it covered all. But again, feel free to contact us after the session, after the meeting. We will share this webinar with you. It was great that you came, and I hope we will hear each other soon. Thank you, and have a good day.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time, guys. Thank you.